Hi, I'm Sally, about to leave on a trip to hike the Skye Trail, followed by the Affric Kintail Way, followed by a couple of days, if I make it there, on the Great Glen Way right into Inverness. So here's what I'm packing. So first of all, I decided to go with these boots instead of my normal Speedcross 6 trail running shoes. I think these might keep the mud out a little bit. So big items. Got my newer Osprey Asia Pro 55. It's super light, it's like 2 pounds. I've got a actually brand new tungsten UL one-person tent. I made a footprint for it. It didn't come with one, out of this material that you can buy to cover windows in the winter. It's super strong and waterproof and light. And I made these little tabs for the tent pegs. I went through the tent pegs and supplemented them, made sure I had one for every single possible spot because it's going to be windy. And I made sure to attach a guide line onto all of the different tabs on the tent and trim it and get it all totally ready for some windy scenarios. Unfortunately, this tent I believe is discontinued, which is why I got it for a really good bargain. I've got a Sea to Summit sleeping pad, ultralight, insulated. Actually won this. It's a Thermarest Parsec, minus 6 degrees Celsius. There are going to be some chilly nights. I'm going to be doing this the last 2 weeks of April, between high and low single-digit temperatures, so we'll see how we go. Okay, what am I wearing? I'm wearing these hiking pants that are actually from Mark's Work Warehouse in Canada, which is kind of an underrated place to buy useful clothes. The brand is Wind River, and they actually look very nice, and they are tick repellent. Next we got a long-sleeved merino shirt. These are the best things to hike in because if you're wearing your rain jacket on top, you don't get it clinging to your skin. And it's merino, which is amazing for so many reasons, including that you can wear it for so many days in a row without it smelling disgusting. I've got this amazing headband from Buff. It's supposed to be really windy, so this will keep my hair out of my face and can keep my ears warm and can kind of even tie on my hat if it's really windy. Hat for the sun. Bought this in Indonesian Borneo about 20 years ago now, and it's still ticking. If you've never tried these socks, I really recommend giving them a go. They really are pretty fantastic. They're called Ininji, I believe, a Japanese brand. I have the synthetic ones, and they've lasted a long time, but you can buy wool ones. I do find after a number of days wearing these continuously, they get really disgusting, like the toes. When you take your foot out, the toes like retain the shape of your toes. So I'm not gonna wear these every single day, but I will try to get as much out of them as I can. I've got a couple pairs of thicker wool socks for colder days. And one of these will be just for sleeping, and I will not wear it anywhere else because that way they will keep nice and dry. Got an old sports bra, nothing fancy. Pair of gloves, got from Costco. Hopefully this will be enough. Even if they get wet, they're still reasonably warm. One more accessory is this merino buff that I can wear around my neck. If it's too sunny, I can kind of use it for some sun protection, and I can also use it as a toque by just sticking it on my head and then twisting this top part around, doubling it over. Okay, that looks ridiculous, but you get the idea. For an extra layer of warmth, this has to be stored very carefully because it's very delicate. It's one of these cinchy, weird fleece layers that's very odd. I think it's called like Alpha Direct or something. It's crazy lightweight, so and quite cozy and warm. And then I've got something I splurged on Poshmark, this Arc'teryx jacket, down jacket. Can't remember what they're called, but bought it used, so it has this sort of goofy TV show logo on it, but it's got a hood, and that's for when it gets really blustery or at night. If I'm sleeping, I often will sleep in this. It's pretty cozy to sleep in. And then the all-important rain gear. I have this quite fancy, newish Helly Hansen jacket that I got at deep discount. It is really nice, Gore-Tex, like 3-layer pit zips, all the fancy features, waterproof zippers on the pockets. The pockets are nice and high, so they won't be blocked by my waist strap, which I really like. It's got a pretty good hood. So what I do when it's raining really hard, I put on my hat so that the water's not dripping right onto my face, and then the duckbill sort of goes right over the hat, and it really keeps the rain, unless it's totally horizontal, it keeps the rain from hitting your face, which is really great. It's much better than just using a hood, I find. And then secondly, I don't always bring rain pants anymore, but I definitely am for this trip. I'm bringing these like fisherman grade rain pants that have been on many trips, and they've really been through it, but they just keep working. They're like fully rubberized. They're also Helly Hansen. I bought these many years ago, and they're not ultralight and not exactly breathable either, but when you're in a downpour, oh, these are like so nice to have on, and they're so nice to have at camp if you're cooking or something in the rain. You can just sit right down in the wettest of grass, and your butt is not going to get wet at all wearing these. So just going all in on the rain pants this time. Undies, I really like these laser cut Under Armour ones. They're really cheap. They're super lightweight, and they dry really fast. They're, I think, just as good as any of the really expensive, like ultralight outdoor backpacky ones. I always bring some kind of long johns to wear as pajamas. It's the top, and I've got this awesome merino ones that I bought in Finland. And if you get a chance, the brand is North Outdoor, and it's very reasonably priced merino. Something I've got a lot of use out of is these packing bags that are from the Daiso, the Japanese dollar store. They are super lightweight, and I've had them many years, and you know, you can even like dangle this one off your pack and like dry a towel in there or something. They're much lighter than the purpose-built one that I have. I also have some dry bags I use for jackets and stuff sometimes, but these are just as good. And the nice thing is these ones kind of, you can squeeze them around the other things that are in your bag without losing, you know, your mittens or your socks or whatever, keeping all that stuff together. And you can use them as pillow as well, which is really nice. I've got a little towel, which I plan on using to wipe out the inside of my tent if it's wet in there. Okay, now we're on to the Glamor stuff. These are a special kind of garbage bag, which you need to watch a video on to understand why these are so special. I will be using these as a sort of pack liner. I'll be putting all my sleep stuff in one of them and all my other stuff in the other, or something like that. So that when I set up my tent, if it's pouring rain, I can sort of throw in the one that has all my stuff for sleeping and my clothes and stuff in the tent. I can wipe it down with my towel, and then hopefully at that point everything inside the tent is dry. Potty stuff, got my poop shovel, got some wet wipey things. They're mostly just water. Can also use these for like giving myself a little once over in the evenings. And I'm saving up old Ziploc bags, opaque Ziploc bags, because after I use one of these to do my business, I will need to pack it out with me, and I won't want to pack them all out together the whole trip. I'll want to be able to get rid of them whenever possible. In terms of electronics, I'll have my phone and my e-reader. That's it. I love having an e-reader when I'm camping, especially by myself, because you know, you're tired and you have a lot of free time in the evening, so it's nice to tuck into a good book. And the battery lasts forever. That's why it's way better than relying on your phone for backcountry camping to read at night. I have 2 battery packs for my phone because I'm hoping to do some filming along the way, and I'm also totally relying on my phone for navigation, or almost totally. So I really don't want to run out of juice, and there's not going to be a lot of places to charge along the way. Got my cords, converter. I've got hiking poles. I'm gonna check my baggage, so I'm not gonna have to worry about having these with me on the airplane. And if you haven't used poles before for backpacking, just do it. It's like so much better. Got a really nice headlamp, which I also won. Pair of sunglasses. I haven't talked about water yet, but I will be using this older style of life straw. Part of my mission this trip was to try not to buy anything new that was just specifically for this trip. I do have some new things, but I actually didn't buy them for this trip. So this is a great tool for backcountry anyways, and I will be able to slurp out of disgusting ponds using this. I've got an extra water bottle. I'll fill this up and then I can dump it in here. There is 1 or 2 days where I'll have very limited access to water. I'm also gonna have to buy a big bottle of water before I head up onto that ridge. But for the most part, I think this will be more than enough to carry along with me because it is pretty wet almost everywhere I'm going. Kleenex. My nose will be snippy if it's cold, blustery. This is, instead of a first aid kit, mainly all I bring is a whole bunch of band-aids in case I get a blister, and then a handful of different medications that might come in handy, like Pepto-Bismol, painkillers, muscle relaxant in case I have a back issue, and a few sleeping pills because I'm going to be jet lagged and I want to make sure I have a good sleep those first couple nights. So I might dip into those. I also usually bring some antibiotic ointment because if you get a little cut in the backcountry, it can get pretty infected and it can be hard to clean. So that's about it. I don't bring like real first aid equipment because realistically I wouldn't know how to use it anyways, and like I'm gonna have to be rescued anyways, so whatever. I do have a tick plier in here because I'm worried about getting ticks. I've got a waterproof watch. I just like this because then if I reset my phone runs out of battery or something, I'm not going to be confused about what time zone I'm in. I've learned the hard way. It's always good to have a watch that with a, time that's not going to change without your control of it. I like to bring a few of these with me when I know that the weather might dip pretty cold on a few nights. They're toe warmers. You just take them out of the package, they warm up. I put them in my sleeping bag. Like, I think these are adhesive, so I can even stick them right onto my long johns or something. And they're so nice to have when it's a really cold night. It's a luxury item. I've got my map for the Skye Trail. I do not have one for the Affric Kintail Way, but I've read that it's very well marked. And I do have good GPSs downloaded for all of the routes I'm doing, and it's good to have multiple apps on your phone, maps. I have Strava, Trailforks, so if I can't find the trail on one of those apps, I can turn around, find another app, and I can always find the trail on one of them. Passport, bus passes, and my wallet, Ziploc bag, food and cooking. So matches and a lighter, because I've learned so many times not to rely on one or the other. I've got a little camp stove. It's the kind with a hose so that you can set it up in the wind and use this little wind shield thing for it. You cannot set up that kind of shield on the kind that goes right on top of the fuel tank because it will blow up. Something I always keep right in the bag is my spork. I love this spork. You can dip right into a real deep bag with this baby. Got my little Japanese titanium pot, and I will be either eating out of this or out of the bag that the food comes in. Got a mug. This way I can have my cup of coffee in the morning and then make one to go. And food. So there are some places I can stop to buy food along the way, but it's going to be kind of limited, so I decided to bring about half the food that I'll need, and then that way I can mix in a lot of like instant noodles along the way without totally overdoing it on the instant noodles. So pretty basic, like tons of granola bars and oatmeal, bunch of extra Ziploc bags so that when I stop at grocery stores, the 2 grocery stores on the way, I can kind of like portion some stuff out, so that I don't have to carry like huge bulky packages of things. I picked up a bunch of little coffee and tea packets in Chinatown, so these have non-dairy creamer and sugar mixed right into some like tea powder or coffee powder. They're kind of heavy. Got a number of little freeze-dried foods. I do recommend that if you bring these kinds of things on the airplane, that you buy the vegetarian ones or even the vegan ones, because other countries don't like you bringing these products into their country. This always seems to be fine to bring these, and to bring any kind of like packaged things or something really innocuous like oatmeal has always been fine as far as I've found, but take your chances. I do have some bigger ones that are really meant for 2 people. So my strategy with these, because it's so hard when you're by yourself, they just like hardly ever sell anything that's really just for 1 person, is to open it and then cook half of it in my pot. And then the next night I can cook it like in the bag, like it's kind of intended to be. So just to give you a sense, this is the whole bag of food that I'm bringing for like 10.5 days of hiking. I think this is about 5 days worth of food for me personally. Okay, toiletries. This is the final category. Tick spray, mostly empty, so that's good. Won't weigh as much. Sunscreen. Purposefully half emptied this so that it would be lighter. Sunscreen lip chap. Very important. Learned that one the hard way. Teeny tiny toiletries. This hairbrush actually works great. These little wilderness hand soap things. You can use them to wash clothes, dishes, whatever. They are biodegradable. Well, you have to make sure to buy the ones that are biodegradable. This brand, I believe, is. And they're like a little strip. They're amazing. You use your dry hand, pull off a little strip. It's soap. Then you get the water on your hands and you suds it up, and it's just like the most miniature bar of soap you've ever seen. And they are so great for travel, for camping. I'm kind of a nerd about having clean hands before I eat or anything. And these are just like so wonderful because you get truly clean hands, not these sort of kind of clean that you would get with hand sanitizer. You can get actually clean hands with these. Personally, I don't cut off the handle of my toothbrush because I have a whole bunch of these guys that are amazing. Those of us unfortunate to be menstruating on a long distance hike, the trick I think is to bring 2 Diva cups. The one thing that I am missing is a emergency blanket. Hi, it's me again from the future, here to tell you what I would do the same and differently on my packing list in hindsight. So I just want to go through a few things that turned out to be really important that I really want to like reinforce. If you're going during the kind of climate I was, which was last 2 weeks of April, definitely, especially if you easily get cold, don't just rely on wearing a pair of regular hiking pants all day because it's cold. You're either going to want long johns under there, or like me, I wore my rain pants like almost all the time, especially on the Skye Trail, even if it wasn't raining, because it was just cold. It was like windy and damp and cold, and those helped keep me warm just during the day. I'd take them off once in a while if I got really warm, but I just wore them continuously for the first week. Second, I'm really glad I brought my merino buff. This is something I did not think about, but I was sleeping with all my layers because I was cold. And so that meant I was sleeping with my down jacket and also with my mummy bag. But both of those are very like synthetic fabrics, and I was worried I would like drool on them and make them wet too. And my fleece didn't have a hood or anything, so I ended up wearing the merino buff as like a hood around my face. And also I was so cold some nights that even though I had the sleeping bag like done up in a little like snorkel hole,
my nose would get so cold at night, so I had the buff and I could like pull it up around my nose. And so that was like amazing. And also it just kept me warmer because then my breath was like covered. One more thing that I just want to reinforce that it was like super useful to have, which was my little travel towel. Because it was raining one morning when I put away my tent, and then it was raining again when I set it up. It had puddles of water in it, but I was able to use that little travel towel to like wipe down everything. I'm also really glad I brought wool socks as well as my Inningi socks. As predicted, my synthetic Inningi socks got crazy smelly. Like I felt terrible even just stopping to talk to somebody on the trail because like the stench coming off them, they were like attached to the back of my backpack when I wasn't wearing them, was just rancid. So I definitely try out the wool ones and see if they work for you. But I'm also so glad that I brought them because I was walking really long days. It turned out to be 303 kilometers over just over 10 days. And to be able to switch back and forth between the toe socks and the wool socks was like really important. And also the wool socks really did keep my feet warm, even when my shoes and socks got completely soaked a couple of days. And that probably will happen to you. So make sure that you have some good wool socks to keep your tootsies warm. Okay, I'm just going to talk quickly now about the things that I wish that I brought or that I wish I had done differently. So first of all, I wish I'd brought some multivitamins because for 10 days I ate very, very poorly in terms of like nutrition. So that's something to think about. I wish that I had brought a dish for my breakfast because having to boil like 4 pots of water every morning to make like coffee, oatmeal, like noodles. I like to have multiple courses in the morning. It was just got really like slow and tedious because I couldn't boil water while I was eating because I was eating out of the pot. So the next thing is that I would have more carefully considered my sleeping setup if I had known how cold I was going to be. The temperature went down to about 2 degrees or maybe colder at night. And most of the time I was really cold at night. And that was despite wearing all of my layers, even having hand warmers 3 of the nights in my sleeping bag. I was still cold. I had all my layers, I had my hood on, everything. I realize now that the sleeping pad that I brought was insulated, but the R value was only like 2 point something, which is not very high. So since then, I got home, I ordered a new one that's made for winter camping, and the R value is like 7.4. The other thing I've done since I got home, because I'm doing another cold weather trip soon, is I bought some down pants off Amazon. They look ridiculous, but I just realized that I was already wearing like 4 layers on my top when I was sleeping, but I was only wearing 1 layer on my bottom. So I thought, okay, that's the next logical step is to like bundle up my bottom half a little bit more. And so I think between my new warmer mattress and my down pants, I think that's really gonna keep me a lot more toasty on my next trip. Finally, my tent. So my tent worked fairly well, but it did flap when it got windy. And there was one night that I could not, like, I just was really struggling to keep it upright because the ground on one side wasn't very firm. And that's where the wind was coming from. And it wasn't windy when I went to bed. So if I'd known, I might have set up my tent differently, but it was a struggle. I wish I'd brought a couple of extra tent pegs because what I could have done is gotten out of my tent and reinforce those points with an extra tent peg, especially if I had a little piece of guy line so I could like double up on those points because it does get really windy and gusty. And the other thing is I lost a tent peg. It was fortunately the last night, so it was fine. I think the tent peg like went flying somewhere, and it's really important when it's windy to have all of your guy lines secured with tent pegs. So having a couple of extra tent pegs would have meant that I could reinforce those places and that I'd have an extra, in case I lost one or two along the way. I sort of wish that I had bought a Durston trekking pole supported tent for this trip because it would have been lighter, of course, and the ground in pretty much everywhere I camped would have been just absolutely perfect for that style of tent. The reason I didn't buy it is because it's not as versatile for the wooden tent pads that we have here in Canada, but in Scotland it would have been just so perfect. And so if you're buying a tent specifically for this trip, either Skye or Affric Kintail or somewhere else in Scotland, I'd definitely consider buying a trekking pole supported tent. So that's all I have to say about gear in terms of the trip. If you're wondering how it went, it was awesome. I am going to make a little video. I did a lot of filming. I've never done this before, so I'll post a link here when that's done. You can check it out. I would say that this is a trip for maybe more experienced people, and it is really, really important to have your gear dialed in and to know how to keep yourself warm and how to keep your gear dry for the Scottish Highlands, especially if you're out there for like a number of days at a time, because the climate there really is unforgiving, especially at the time of year I went there. I'm sure there's periods of time when it's really nice, but you do not want to mess around. I hope this helps. I hope this helps you have an awesome time hiking in the Scottish Highlands. Yeah, happy trails.